In 1994, Mr. Jewell established the Jewell Group, which is an LLC which owns substantial commercial and residential property holdings here in Columbus, Harlem, New York, Fort Myers, and Riviera Beach, Florida. Mr. Jewell became the majority stockholder in JB Chart Development Company in 2004, where he has led the development of residential housing, which targets low and moderate income families. So without further ado, we'll bring Mr. Jewell up to. Good evening.
Is this mic working? Everything's working? Had to check. Wow, aren't you beautiful? This I enjoy. This I have been doing for many, many years. And I don't call it giving back. I call it, this is what drives me, right? Being before my young black people striving to find themselves in their world of work and to understand their talents and to be able to take them forth for themselves, their family, their community, and the world. And I know I have 6 children. I've got 4 girls and I've got 2 boys. And they've all been pushed to achieve, as you all. I have 2 of my daughters are physicians. One is a lawyer. Another is a fashion designer. Those are the girls. My son is a genius IT fella. Travels all over the world. The only problem is he lives in cyberspace and he doesn't come down to brick and mortar anymore. So the only way to communicate with him, he could be anywhere on the planet. He could be in Japan one day, in Brazil the next day, and Los Angeles or New York. I own a house in New York too, and he tries to usurp it and just take it and don't pay rent. And every time I turn around, he's sliding into it. It's supposed to be a family home. But he goes there, he's a backpack guy. And I only mention that is because as I look around and look at this group, you are millennials, kind of. They came up with a term called millennials. And that's what they label this age group. It's different than the group where I came up. And for me to understand you guys, and what motivates you and how you do business and what your expectations are quite different than what mine were when I came up. I came up in Virginia, outside of Richmond. You guys have seen probably, when I talk to you guys, it would be on Nick at Night because you don't remember the original show called The Waltons. John Boy, Elizabeth, you know, that kind of thing. So some of you may know about it, may not. But it's a country family. And where it's depicted is exactly where and how I grew up, in fact. 7 children, parents, and grandparents in the same house. We had 5.5 acres of land. We had pigs, chickens. We had a cow who folded. We had to milk the cow in the morning. We had to weed the yards. We had to bale the hay. We had to cut the wood. We had to draw the water out the well. My grandfather would get us up daybreak to weed those gardens. Then we had to can with my grandmother. Then we had to store stuff in the brooder house. And then we had the smokehouse where we had our own meat. I can go on, but we were self-sufficient. Why were we self-sufficient? Because my family had these 5 boys that they put to work from sun up to sundown. So what did it do? It really made us industrious. It really gave us a work ethic, whether we liked it or not. It really taught us to toil to get things done and not worry about the weather, what time of day it is, how comfortable we are. We had to get it done no matter the circumstances. Today, my wife turns the TV on every day, want to know what the weather's like. I never look at the weather report. I could care what the weather is. It's not going to stop me or cause me to do anything different today than I got to get done today. That's why they got coats and boots and hats and, you follow? Commitment to your purpose, will cause you to be successful, whatever your endeavor is, no matter what. But you got to set it as a priority. And if you do that, I guarantee you, if you stay consistent and persistent, whatever your endeavor is, wherever you're headed, you will achieve it. Because you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to have the best grades. You don't have to finish college. You don't have to finish high school. It's good to do. Never going to tell anybody not to. But those are not real barriers to success. If you are determined, and if you look at who's making all the big money, all the great innovations, a lot of them quit school in the midstream. So I'm not saying don't go to school. I am saying you don't have to give up if you decide not to, if you have something specific that you're going after and you're determined to get it. I finished high school up there in the country and went in the Navy. And if I hadn't gone in the Navy and gone out into the world, I don't know what I would have done, because I think the first family school reunion I went to was like 27 years later, and there were about 16 people left. Because rough life up there in the country, and especially when you don't take care of yourself, you don't have good health care. But I did, and it went well. Came out with some skills and some capability, ended up in Boston, and I ended up working as a medic in the Navy, and came out with some skills in respiratory, and became a group of 8 of us who formed the school of the profession of respiratory therapy. It was oxygen therapy before. So 8 of us with the Harvard Teaching Hospitals in Boston formed the whole profession of respiratory therapy in this country. We wrote the exam, we took the exam that we wrote, and were the first respiratory therapists. And that started my career path, thinking I wanted to be a physician, because I loved the work, I was good at that work, etc. And the doctors that I worked for and the team that I worked for thought so as well. And they got me an interview at Harvard Medical School, and I got accepted at Harvard Medical School to be a physician, and went away to study, because that was February, and then I was to go in September. I got a letter saying, well, we'll fill for September, but you can go in January. But I got involved in the civil rights movement and never went back to Boston. I went down to Richmond to study and never went back to school, because the civil rights movement, to me, at that time, was more important. Not to my family. Everybody thought I was stupid and crazy. Well, look at me today. I'm okay. I've got children who've got that bug and succeeded. One at Johns Hopkins and one at Duke. Okay? Practicing medicine, doing well, so they got that legacy. But what came out of that for me, now I have an IT company I've had for what? 25 years this year. And guess what? How it all comes full circle. My passion now is to create access to health care through the use of technology. See how life brings you in circles? I didn't want to be a physician. Apparently, that was not my calling. So you don't give up moving and trusting and having faith in your journey, because you don't know where your journey is going to take you. So full circle, now, today, my IT company, yes, we do work of all kinds of, that's on the documents, and I'm not going into all of that tonight. That's why I gave it to you. You can go on the website and you can see all the technology and the stuff that we do. But I just want you to know that you don't know where your journey is going to take you and where you're going to end, but you have to have the courage to trust it and to break through any standard kind of pattern that just keep you going when you got something in your heart telling you that you really have a chance to do something different. You got to trust it. You got to have faith, because it's not free. Life is risky. Those who have greater success, they risk it all. I mean, I used to put on my desk, I haven't had it on my desk for a long time, but in the Bible it said, die daily in my name. I put that on my desk, and I say, I die daily for what I believe in. I die daily to achieve what I want to achieve. I die daily. I will not let anyone turn me around. I will not let anybody say I can't or to try to stop me as I try to move to where my calling is. And I have done that. And I've had a great journey. You know, I don't know how many years I got left. I have a good friend. He's sick now. He's a physician. And he has this saying, Curtis, we need to just count our summers. We don't have many summers left. You start looking at life in terms of summers, you start realizing the numbers don't look too big. I got 16 summers. I got 15 summers. I got 5 summers left. What's the average lifespan? So you better get busy. You get busy and you start doing what it is that's in your heart, what your calling is, what you know you're intelligent enough to achieve, and go and get it done. Now, I'm the kind of guy that has lived and reinvented myself so many times in life by following that calling, that if I keep talking, I can talk a stream on any subject you want to talk about. But I may not be talking about the things that are most important to you. So I wanted to take 10 minutes or so, which I've just done, give you some sense of me. And I really want to have a dialogue for the rest of the time remaining so that you can tell me what's important to you. And I can talk on that subject, probably. And if I can't, I'll just say I can't. But I think it's more productive for us now to just dialogue with each other. I'm here as family. We're just family, talking about stuff that's important for the reason you're here. This is leadership. You're all aspiring to be leaders. You are leaders. You want to be stronger leaders. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what it takes to be a good, strong leader. So just open it up, talk to me, ask me questions, and I'll spend the rest of the time answering, talking, giving my best thought on whatever it is that comes to your mind.
I would kind of like to hear more, going back 25 years ago when you started Excell and kind of what that process looked like.
Okay, I'd be glad to. Excell, which if you hadn't looked before or don't know, is my computer consulting firm. Boy, I'm trying to give you some prelude to the 25 years to show you how I got there. But anyway, let's just start. I had just come back from Nigeria, which I spent about 5 years back and forth because I built I've been an entrepreneur all my life. International trade company, working with with people there who, because Nigeria was part of OPEC. Go read about OPEC. Don't believe what you read here. But OPEC came to being because the Western oil companies were just taking their oil out of their land, giving them nothing, and refining it, taking it back to them, charging $4 and $5 a gallon when we were paying 35 cents for it. So they got their oil, took control of their oil, and that's how our gas prices, oil prices went up. But I wasn't mad because I understood what happened and how it happened in the first place. So history is important for you to understand. But anyway, that was a great experience, but I didn't get rich like I thought I was going to get. Came back, took a little job with Nationwide Insurance Company as an agent. And while there, met a fellow who had a computer consulting firm. I was disillusioned with the amount of money one could make as a nationwide insurance agent. Everybody thought they were making a lot of money, but they weren't. So I joined him for about 2 years, learned the business, spun it out, and formed our own company in 1989 in my bedroom, just me. He had brought me on because he was getting business in this area. Ray, you remember Walter Morgan? Bill Sykes, good friend? So I joined with him and became his regional manager for his business. He was out of Maryland. And started selling into the state government, IT services. Stayed with him for 2 years, learned the business. He and I fell out. I started my company in 1989, went back into those markets. We had no non-compete. Okay, they knew me. They didn't know him. But I did the high road. I said, if you're going to give me this contract, you need to write him and tell him you're going to give me this contract. And they did. He was furious with me. But I got that first contract with the Commerce Department, state of Ohio, my first contract ever. Performed well. Now, here's the interesting thing about what one can accomplish. I got into the IT business with unmitigated gall. I didn't know anything about IT. Well, listen to me now. But what I knew and what I found out, I really, really do know how to manage any kind of enterprise. I'm a manager of enterprises, and that's a skill. Okay? You don't need to know all the, what's his name over at GE? Welch? Huh? Jack Welch? Y'all know Jack Welch? Know of him? You know how big GE is? You know how many products, services? You think Jack Welch know anything about those products or services? No, but he know his people. He know how to hire people. You don't even have to hire a person by knowing how to hire them alone. You find somebody smart as them or better than them in their field and let them help you hire that person. And you do that for everything you have to do, and you can build your organization and an enterprise and don't have to know anything but about the product. It's good to know a little bit. I know a little bit. I don't even like these phones and stuff. I don't use laptops and pads, but I got a team of people who love it, who are expert at it, a genius at it, who can program it, who can take it to the cloud, and who can do everything you can imagine with it. And I know how to work with them. I know how to make them my first customer. I know how to keep them incentivized, let them know they're respected, that I appreciate what they do, make them glad to come to work. And I've got people that have worked for me doing that for 20 years, 15 years, 18 years, 16 years. Out of the 24, be 25 next year. But I've got people that have been with me that whole time and will never leave. Why? Because they love it, because they know I love them. I take care of them, and I sincerely appreciate and value them. And I'm not stingy. I'm a generous man in terms of making sure they're incentivized, not just with money, but with care, with birthday, their families, their deaths, whatever else happening in their world and in their family. My company responds to it for them, because that's the first line of production for success for any enterprise. I don't care if it's profit, non-profit. If you're a leader, if you're the boss, you got to take care of your people first, and they will take care of your customer, your patient, or whoever it is that you're responding to. Whoever you're in business for, you have to first love your team. You have to build you a team, take care of your team, stay connected with your team. In this new day, all this Skype, disconnects you from the relationships you need to build internally with your people and with your customer. And if you think that you can run a business and sit in your comfort zone, in your skivvies, that's what we used to call them, in your shorts and only show this much and keep doing your business and think that you're going to be successful long, I'm not going to say you don't use those tools. Those are valuable tools to use sometimes, but do not let them supplant the need and the importance of personal relationship, that's never going to die. I don't care how technical this world gets. If you are not responding to the people you have to work with one-on-one or in person and show them some love, some courtesy, some respect, you're not going to build a relationship. People do business with people they like. You don't give them a chance to like you on Skype, kind of a little bit, but they don't know you. So I don't want to say a whole lot about that, but this group that I'm talking to live in that age where that technology, I think it's good, but you got to control it and don't let it control you, because you'll find yourself not connecting. Yes, sir.
What racial barriers have you had to deal with? Because, IT is very heavily white male. So over your period of time, what are some of the things that you've had to deal with and kind of overcome in your profession?
Good question, good question. I mentioned I came out to civil rights. I chose that over going to an Ivy League school, which might suggest some of my personality. I'm really black. I'm real black, okay? So I'm very cognizant and aware of all of that. But I'm smart too. It's, all right, some of the little secrets. Build a diverse team. Take advantage of the team that you build. People have multiple skills, multiple talents, multiple assets. And me, as an entrepreneur, thinking of how I'm going to get the best result out of a prospect or someone I want to get something favorable from, I've got to match several things. Let me tell you a little secrets. I dressed for y'all tonight. I was particular about what kind of clothes I put on, given the audience I expected to be around tonight. Yesterday, I had lunch with Denny Griffith at CCAD. That's an art school. I broke up my New York shirts with design, with the design in here, okay? Right? And my brown suede coat that went with it, and a pair of slacks with rivets in it. I was cool. I was artsy, because I was in an arts environment. So I walked through that arts environment with Denny. He took me on a tour, and we had lunch, and I met his team and his staff and all these artists. I was cool. We finished that. Denny said, "Curtis, I really like you." Hello? I'm a defense contractor. I go down to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I got a pickup truck I drive down there. And I wear just a rough shirt, and I got some shoes I own for 35 years. And I still wear them. I wear them down to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. They plain old shoes, right? And a plain old white shirt, or regular old tie, and maybe a black jacket and brown pants. I look like them, because that's what they wear, okay? I got some places that I've got old white man. I send a young white girl in to meet with him.
That's right. That's right. Oh, yeah, black nowadays.
Old white women, I go in there to meet with them. Hey, keeping it real, right? Those are examples of real life maneuvering in the world that you really do live in. You got bureaucrat level people in like state government or some of these, or federal government or some of these organizations that don't make any money, and they talk about affirmative action, you talk about 8A, you talk about MBE, you talk about all of these vehicles that allow you to get into that environment to get the business, and they're sitting there for 10, 15, 20 years. They can hardly make their car note, and they got to make sure that you're going to get a contract, and they don't like you anyway. So who are you going to send in there? Send a little white girl in there? Or a white boy in there? That's me. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but to answer your question, all of this going through my mind when I decide my strategy to try to get new business. After we get I've got business in 50 states in Canada. I've got people, 1,800 people deployed going out there fixing stuff in people's shops all over North America. They ain't never seen me. They don't know who owns the company. They don't need to. They stuff getting fixed, and it's getting fixed right, and it's getting fixed now at a great price. They don't care. Some people care, some people don't. But you got to take a look at the world you live in, because we like to think there's a level playing field, but there isn't. And you have to, and Ray, I think we were talking about it the other night when we were having dinner. This city of Columbus has not been real generous to black business. It hasn't. Still isn't. But I had a mentor, Smoot, told me 30 years ago that was the case. I went outside of Columbus and started building my enterprise. And to this day, I do very little business in the city of Columbus. I'm starting to do more, and I got to come up with a whole new strategy now that I'm going to really go after the private sector in Columbus, and I'm starting to do that. We can talk about that in terms of what that other project we were talking about. So now I got to do it a little different because I really don't have to, but I want to start growing some business in the city in which I live. I don't have to. I ain't going on an island now somewhere and forget about it, but I'm not going to. So anyway, strategy. You come up with your own strategy on how you're going to get accepted and build a relationship in the business or the place you want to do business. Did I answer you? Yes, sir.
You talked a little bit about team building. I was curious about what you do if you realize at some point the team you built wasn't the team you thought it was. How do you deal with that?
I've had a lot of that early years. Then you weed them out, and then you end up with a team that lasts a long time. A lot of it's trial and error. You set a culture, though. For instance, I had somebody new come into the environment like long ago, sat at the conference table, we were talking about some stuff, and they start cursing. I let them finish. Then I just turned to them and said, we don't curse at Excell. People will inject themselves out of the environment if their culture is appreciably different than the culture they find themselves in. They will weed themselves up. They can't stay. So it's not perfect hiring. You make some good hires that last a long time. But the bad ones, if you got the longer you're in business, the stronger your culture is, the easier it is for the bad ones not to stay. It's hard for somebody who's not of the same loyalty, ethic, integrity, work history, as the culture is, to come into that environment and try to play games or spend all the time at the water cooler or not come to work on time and just got excuses why they got to leave and all that kind of stuff. That person will never stay in the environment, and you'll see it and you'll weed them out.
Let me say this, on questions, it's an enormous opportunity. So Mr. Jewell is going to answer your questions directly. like what plays in Vegas stays in Vegas. So if you guys have a question that you want to ask, this will be confidential, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So don't just ask a general question. Say, I've got this situation that I'm dealing with, and how would you deal with this situation? And he'll come straight with you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
So I have a question. I was going to ask this before you said that, Senator Miller, but so how did you deal with? You said that you had some conflict when you decided to go join the civil rights movement, right? Instead of going back to Harvard. So how do you manage your family? Because I'm kind of in that position, you know. My family wants me to go get my MBA and, you know, move up in my job, and I'm like, no, I'm going to be a filmmaker. That's what I've been doing. So
Right.
how do you manage them to that? You know, because they can.
Where do they live?
Where do they live? They
Yeah.
live here in
Huh?
Reynoldsburg, Ohio.
Move to New York. And in fact, you remember Mabel Haddock? I've been on her board for 30 years and chaired it for the last 8. Well, I got off as chairman a couple years ago. But we've moved that to Harlem. If you're interested in filmmaking, I am on the board of the National Black Programming Consortium, who's funded principally by Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and we fund filmmakers. We put them out there. Most of the black films that come through PBS comes through at some point through our consortium. That's where you get your black film. They've got consortiums, Native American, Indian, Pacific Rim, all the ethnic groups. There's a consortium funded to go out through the diaspora of the world, find interesting films or filmmakers, and to train filmmakers to produce important black films or films from their ethnic persuasion. So if you want to do films, and move to New York. You don't have to move to New York necessarily, but get out their house. Go and do what you believe you want to do, but you got to stick with it and be dedicated to it to be successful, or they will be right and you will be wrong.
You know, there's I'm sorry, but on this one, there's a really good, very small book that I gave out at Christmas time to a bunch of people. It's called The Dream Giver. It's a very small book, but what it talks about, and it's an allegory, so when you read it, you know, it's full of characters, it's kind of a fun book, but it's very small. I don't know if I'm thinking that the author is Scott Peck, but I'm not certain. Anyhow, in this book, what it does is it says, here's a character that had a dream, wanted to follow his dream, and ran into these barriers. So you have what's called border bullies, then he goes to the land of giants, and it moves on from there. So I think to that point, it's one of those, if this is really what you know your assignment is, if this is your calling, then nothing can stop you from getting there. And those around you, including family members, will get on board with it. But you can't, the point of the book is, you've been given an assignment. It sometimes comes in terms of your passion, your dream, but you need to follow through. Now, this is a perfect hookup, if you ask me, for something like that, what you're looking at doing. But you might want to, all of you, check out that book. I know it's called The Dream Giver. I just can't remember which one it is. Oh, Bruce Wilkinson. Okay, thank you. Did you read it? Oh, you just
See? You see what they got? It's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's it. You got instant information about anything you want.
Right.
Just you control it, don't let it control
Thank
you.
very much. Yeah.
Next, anybody?
Greetings.
Greetings.
Kind of piggybacking on what he's talking about, I did pick up and move here about 3 months ago to expand my brand. You talked about reinventing yourself several times.
Yes.
Okay, I'm in that process. In the process, I was talking with a friend earlier, you have bills,
Yes.
and then you're building, and then you still have your brand.
Yes.
And my question to you is, during the time of reinventing, on whichever occasion it was, what type of help, what type of team did you enlist to assist you in that? Because we all have great ideas and great energy, Sometimes we need somebody to kind of,
Yeah. Let me see if I can pick one. What did I come here as the drug czar, didn't I?
Yeah.
Ha!
Yeah.
Let's start there, because that's not the first one, but that was one we know. I came here in 1972. I was recruited to open up and run as executive director of a substance abuse clinic called Uhuru. Remember, right? Huh? You forgot that. I was recruited, and that's how I ended up in Columbus in the first place, because I was a national consultant for the National Institute of Mental Health, helping communities write grants and to establish these therapeutic communities throughout the nation. And we became the #1 program in the country down in Richmond, Virginia. So the National Institute of Mental Health sent everybody to Richmond to see our program, and Jim Robinson came down with his crew, and that's how I became the consultant to Columbus. And then after the grant got awarded, he and Bob Lazarus came down to my house and asked me to come to Columbus to run the drug program. So before that, I was still working in civil rights, and to make money, I was working at the hospital across the street as a hemodialysis technician. Getting paid while doing civil rights stuff. And then they got this money, the Community Action Agency got the money to start this substance abuse program, and I just moved over to that just to get paid while I was still doing my other stuff. And then they brought in a guy that was just a brilliant guy to be the executive director that knew this stuff, and I was just there for the money until he started doing these group sessions with the clients, bringing these addicted people off the street and out of jails and sitting there and doing group therapy and whatnot. And I'm sitting there, and they were doing it off the old AA model, 12 steps and stuff. And I had never done drugs, or I wasn't an alcoholic, so I felt like a fish out of water. But I was just sitting there, listen. Then they hit me. This ain't got nothing to do with drugs. This is about dysfunctional families. That's what these people's issues are. They started doing drugs later. They do it as a Band-Aid. They do it so they don't have to think about the stuff that happened in the house with their mama and their daddy and their sisters, or their lack of daddy or lack of mama, and the fighting and the kicking and the screaming and the stuff that they growing up in. That's what's wrong with these people. If I was them, I'd take drugs too. Anyway, I became one of the best counselors in the country. And that's how I ended up in Columbus as the executive director of the therapeutic community to work with the substance abusers and establish centers in all the prisons in this state to Bennett Cooper. Dr. Bennett Cooper gave me privilege in all the institutions to set up little cadres to do screening and teach them to screen who I could take out of the prison system and put into my drug program. And I did. But that's not a job, that's a lifestyle. That burns you out. And it burnt me out, and I transitioned from that after giving 8 years of my life to it. And went on an international trip.
People around like, all right, I'm not a drug czar anymore. I'm not going to Harvard. Now I'm doing this. I mean,
I'm not living near my family who I don't care what they think. I live in Ohio, they live in Virginia.
with a network of people that you deal with.
It's always a new network. Got some old friends that last through it all. And I've got one or two now after 50 some years of it that are my lasting friends that have been with me for 45 and 50 years. One or two. Everybody else is in transition and transience in my life. You don't have everybody in your life as a friend who stay with you. They opine your life. They come in and they go out. But there's some that last. that you're close to forever and close to you. But like I say, you only have 1 or 2 friends. So you can't get bogged down in what somebody else thinks. You try to not go too far left or right, so you ain't too crazy out there in the world. But basically, you got a path that you kind of stay in, and people gonna have their opinion about it. But anyway, it's you. So it ain't about somebody else's thinking, it's yours.
Other questions? Yes.
For me
Maybe
personally,
the last question. Go ahead.
It's up to you.
for me personally, I kind of, I struggle when I think about moving forward and progressing in my career, particularly at the company that I'm at, which is in healthcare. My background is primarily mental health and behavioral health. And there's limited opportunities there. However, going back to what you were saying as far as like not needing to know anything about the product, like I think sometimes I kind of, I don't know if it's fear or I'm sabotaging myself, but I'm reluctant to go for positions that require me to know anything about medical because nurses work there, you know, and me feeling like I need to know something about how to care for a person from a physical perspective. And so like what would be your advice in terms of moving past that barrier or that wall of feeling like you don't know enough to...
Well, transfer what you know into a degree. I mean, in that instance, if you're dealing with people's lives, you know, you need to know a little something.
Well, I'm talking about in terms of people management.
You got to get in there. I mean, can you get in there without the requisite certifications that a nurse has to perform what services they perform with a patient? Do you have to have credentials by law to be able to do that?
To be a supervisor?
Yeah.
No. I mean, you have to have your degree, you know, in terms of the work that you're doing, but in terms of, like, I don't have to have an RN degree to be able to supervise a nurse.
You can supervise an RN without an RN.
I'm sorry?
You can supervise an RN without having an RN.
Correct. In that setting, it's a corporate environment.
Then what's the barrier?
Like I said, I think it's my own personal
Let me tell you what's
limitations.
happening. Here's what's happening. He is not a process person.
Okay.
He is the get it done person, right? And you're doing process. So the battle is, he's saying, what is the problem? Go do it. And you're saying, here's the process that I'm kind of going through.
Right.
Listen to him.
Yeah.
If there's something you want to do, go do it. That's what he's saying.
And work it out. And you don't have to know everything as you're going to get it. You will learn like that. You just got to have the courage to go and declare it. And you will learn. Half of the people who you look at that you think know everything and you don't, they don't. So declare it. It's your courage in you and belief in yourself that say, I can do this. But then you got to walk it like that. You can't walk with your head down and expect anybody to respond to you. You got to hold and declare it. And getting a little information about it don't hurt. So it's up to you guys, but you know, I always tell everybody I'm a weed. I ain't no flower. You don't put water on me. I'm going to grow no matter what. I ain't nothing but a little low country weed. Can't hurt me. So I go do it. Why can't you? You don't need to be watered every day and sprinkled and clipped and set in front of the sun in order to survive and to be. Grow anywhere. Grow where they don't want you to grow. That's what a weed does. Right? Just do it. There's nothing, there's no real ceiling, ain't but paper mache. Ain't no ceiling, ain't no wall. It's paper painted to look like bricks. That's life. It's nothing but more than what you want. Go get it. Stop listening to other people's voices. Listen to your own and just go get it. I applaud you guys. Thank you, Ray. I've enjoyed it.
Okay, we're gonna take a break. Marty's, you gonna do a tour kind
I
of
haven't
thing?
seen the demo.
Okay, we're gonna take a break, and then we'll reconvene in about, 10 minutes. 7, 10 minutes, okay?
I think it's stuff right there.